simply generate the energy and send it out at the crown chakra and visualize it going through the network and into the other people's individual crown chakras and attuning them to energy that way. That doesn't seem to be terribly feasible without the attunement from DK. So, go through the motions. If you're going to do an attunement at a distance, explain that that's what you want to do to the solar angel ahead of time, and all of the solar angels involved, including the group solar angel. All right. And then use the surrogate method of attunement at a distance, which involves either using a stuffed animal, like Michael and I were joking about at lunch, where Mike originally went up to Denver when I was staying, or went up to Boulder when I was staying in Boulder, and took his master training during like a day of the week or something. And so we sat there with like what was the
stuffed bunny?
The stuffed bunny. That's right. It was priceless. And we were kind of using its ears for arms because the arms would go move. I mean, it was just great. And that works very well. I mean, I've used teddy bears. I've used all kinds of things. These days, I just pretty much visualize it. You know, I just let my visualization faculties carry me through. That's what I did today. I didn't use the TK version. I used the Solar Angel version. And I just visualized every step of the attunement process that I was doing. Now, along with that, this is a very intuitive thing, you know. We saw Kathleen doing the single breath into the hands. Well, a lot of times when I was doing this today, at a distance, I didn't feel like one breath was enough, so I did more than one. Sometimes I didn't feel that a snap was enough, so I'd snap and see how it felt, and then clap instead. So those are some variations that you may have heard that sort of differed from the attunement process, and that's the reason I did it. It was a very intuitive thing. And anytime you do stuff at a distance, it's going to be a very intuitive thing, so make sure that you keep your ears perked, so to speak. But that, in a nutshell, is by far the most effective way to attune people at a distance and in a group. And as you get more proficient at it, what you'll find is that it is also a superior method of attunement in general, that it keeps your energy field further out of it, so the restrictions that you have within your energetic system do not influence the process in really any significant way, whereas they tend to with other energetic hands-on attunement processes. Yeah.
I suppose you're using a surrogate, a live person, to represent the party you're sending the energy to. How involved is it going to get with that person's energy that you're using as a surrogate?
Involved enough that I don't recommend it.
Okay.
I don't use people or things that have other energy fields.
Do you do these over the telephone, or you do them?
It doesn't matter.
If you're doing it over the telephone, how do you go through all the motions with the surrogate animal? Did you put the phone down?
Yeah, or hold it in your phone.
Or what?
Or hold it in your shoulder or something. I don't do it over the telephone.
No, you don't.
I send it, and I usually intend that they receive it at the time that's most beneficial for them. Usually that's overnight while they're asleep, and they just wake up. Mm-hmm. Or I'll have them sit in meditation at a specific time and something. Usually, it's handy in a situation like this. You know, I mean, there were 24 people or so to attune here today. I mean, like I said, it would have come until this hour had I done it all individually, hands-on, and it really wouldn't have been nearly as powerful. So this is the primary application of things like this. Although, you know, the impetus behind it, and the impetus behind my original investigation of it was to develop a way that people could study at home. Because if we get mail from people who live out in the sticks that are very interested in learning this, but can't make it in class anywhere on the planet that we would consider civilization, that I didn't need like a chopper drop into or something. And so I began to wonder about whether or not this could be taught at a distance, and I figured, hey, Jessica's here, I'm not attuning her today, what the heck, let's have her look at it. And it went from there. It's been a culmination of over a year of research at this point. From my original wonderings about it to my seeing Jessica after having found the processes and sorted through the energetic effects and stuff. So, anyway, that is the best advice that I can give you on it, and I highly recommend that you practice it, because your visualization faculties and the focus and intent and all of that plays a really key part in it. And if you have clairvoyants watch it, what they will see is you literally standing behind someone at different points of it, despite the fact that you may be on the other side of the country. very interesting.
So that today you didn't use a circuit, you just went through the solar angels. without
Yeah,
the
today I just visualized it.
circuit. So that's,
I don't use surrogates.
So that's the way to do it, is without the circuits and just visualize it, use the solar angels.
Yeah, yeah. And you can use a surrogate with the solar angel. I mean, that's just a prop for you if you can't visualize well. You know, when I was visualizing putting symbols into your hands, I visualized sort of two large light hands here that represented all of yours. And as I saw myself tracing the symbols into those hands, I also saw myself tracing the symbols into all of your hands. And then after I got done tracing them, I paused for a moment and I built up the very strong visualization and went, almost individually to make sure that they were in everybody's hands. And then I blew, and so it's, this is something you're gonna.
Okay, past few months you came up with some silver attunements. You mind mentioning anything about those?
Okay. So gentleman in Oakland, serving first again. The reason we originally spoke is because he ran across one of my students, or one of my students ran across one of his students, or something like that. But somehow the opinion was expressed that Reiki was missing most of its higher spiritual frequencies, as it was expressed in the original Tibetan current. There was this guy out there that researched all of these energies. So, somebody got me his number, or he got my number, or something. We wound up speaking, and really enjoyed talking to him. It's one of those. I don't have a lot of people that I can talk to about a lot of this stuff. So it was very nice to find someone with extremely advanced metaphors and a lot of experience. And Irving has had a unique gift. He works with a specific energy current that he's sort of the only person in the Western world doing. It comes from his Tibetan sources, and it's called Drasana, which stands for Daughter of the Sun. And it's got 30 outer levels, and pardon me.
Would you spell that?
D-R-I-S-A-N-A.
Are you talking about Irving first? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
He doesn't travel. If you want to learn this, you go to him. Big enough market. At any rate, so we wound up talking, and he had the ability to attune himself to tune in and receive information about just about any energy current, which I found to be relatively fascinating. And then the limitations that he had were relieved from an attunement that we both got one night talking on the phone from my solar angel. But here nor there. The important thing in this is that he'd really done his homework pretty well on Reiki, and he paid attention as people rolled through, and he was the one that had the friend who sent out and received back all of the master symbols and all of that. He felt quite strongly that the top % of the energy was missing, and the student that he ran across of mine that he reattuned certainly agreed with him. And I trusted that person's insight quite a bit, because they're a fairly decent clairvoyant with a lot of experience in energy work. And so, curious, I called him up, and we wound up hitting it off pretty well. I started to look at this, and really felt that he was right. A lot of the things that he said were pretty much hitting the nail on the head. So that's where that expanded or advanced Tibetan, whichever you want to call it, it's got a couple of different names, comes from. Is Irving out there, and the interesting thing about it is that he sends energy at a distance in the same way that he attunes people. He uses TK's process. So anytime he sends you any energy that you're playing back and forth with, and now I sort of do the same thing, you're automatically attuned to it. So if you can remember how it felt, you can call it back up real easily. And the other neat thing about that is that when he sends it to you, it doesn't have any symbols associated, and so consequently, you get really well trained in calling up energy calling up a specific energy by the way it feels with this attunement procedure as well, which I found to accelerate the ability to do energy work phenomenally. So that's where the silver ray quote unquote energy comes from. When I was with Kathleen Noner, she thought that was essentially Sakara. She thought that the two were pretty much one and the same. So when you hear her refer to her Sakara stuff, or when you see her Reiki Master, Sakara Master, or whatever, after her name, That's sort of what she refers to. She equates to the same level of energy. She was pretty damn fascinated to find out that somebody else was out there spreading it. And perhaps a little panic since Irving does it for free. But, and that's another thing, I didn't find that, I was wondering if it was going to be some, pimp his own, persona system. And, if you call him up, he'll attune you for free, right there on the phone. One of the interesting things about it is that when you're attuned, everybody downline from you is attuned to the energy as well. So keep that in mind. And that's true of just about everything that he sends you. And so, I'm a little spotty, but
That's a little bit about what Kathleen told me when she did the first love of Sakara, Sophia, and Angelic Light for me, that in attuning my students thereafter, there would be some of that energy bleeding off into their field, even though I wasn't doing that process because I'm not trained in attuning people to Sakara and stuff. I haven't gone any farther than the first level. But I have noticed that, absolutely. And so have some of my students noticed that in their initiation, they felt a different sensation. And we talked about it.
Kathleen believes that anytime her energy is upgraded or added onto, that all of her students downline energy is also upgraded and added onto. And I couldn't reconcile that with the fact that if that's the case, then how could you teach individual classes on the other energies? And how could the other energies not, be transferred in her attunement? I mean, the belief was incongruent. But I thought it was interesting. When I've heard it expressed other places, so, there was a sort of a tie there between what Irving says and what she said, but it was on total different levels of understanding of it.
If what she says is true, then that would be the difference why people would have such a different feeling from different Reiki masters if they were carrying other energies along.
True. Well, I think it's more, as far as I'm concerned, Irving really hit the nail on the head when he started doing his research into Reiki masters, and it was the reason he stayed away from it, really, although he is one. But in that, he'd see one Reiki master, and they'd just be working with like gold energy, and he'd see another one, and they'd have the full spectrum, just a great spectrum of the available things in Reiki, and he'd see another one that was just heavily violet and not anything. So, I think that was more telling in terms of why people have a different, why various Reiki masters and schools have a different vibration. It seems to be the energy that they can contain themselves or open up to themselves. And that's the thing that totally impresses him about it, essentially, and why he's willing to, blast everybody up to what he considers the full level, for free.
It has a lot of validity to my thinking itself. It has a lot of logic.
Yeah, Reiki has a lot of myth, about it never being able to do harm, or about it, it's green magic. It's the magic of neutrality. It can, it'll do whatever you want it to do. You're going to limit it by your belief systems, and also you're going to limit it heavily by what you were, and this is an important point, by what you were told when you were first initiated into Reiki. What your early imprints are. Because I haven't met very many people in my life that could effectively clear out their imprints. A few here and there, but most of them just think they can. And it's kind of this great mind game in sort of the New Age crowd, especially. But the imprint that you're left with is going to dictate your ability and how you can use the energy. So if you were told that it's this beneficent thing that can never do wrong, at the core of it, that's what you're always going to buy into if that was your first imprint on it all. I can tell you opposite of this and prove opposite to you as much as I want, but you're always going to go back to that core imprint unless you drop it out of your belief system somehow. So that's why, it may be a good thing to, in a first or secondary class, to look somebody in the eye and say, well, it can really only be used for good. That's something you're going to have to reconcile within your own belief system.